Welcome to Two Taps and Friends. Grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's dive into another episode of Two Taps and Friends.
Welcome back to Two Taps and Friends. I'm Daniel Rosenberg, your host. I brought my colleague back again, Lloyd Golburgh, to talk about new developments that have been going on, obviously with Israel, right? Welcome back. First of all, Lloyd, welcome back.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure to have you. Always a brother of mine, colleague. I know apparently we're on the front line together now, right?
Apparently.
Fighting back on social media, getting attacked.
Yep.
Personal jabs I saw on you yesterday, and nasty. These people are all nasty. But, you know, a couple of them we might see in person. You know, let's just put it that way.
And nothing unexpected.
Exactly. But obviously a lot of new developments. That's why, like, as soon as Iran, obviously when the Iran thing happened, I texted you, I said, we got a lot to talk about, right?
Yep, that's right.
So we've been on here talking about for this entire time where, you know, we're talking about Israel-Palestine, and we're talking about the Palestinians, and we're talking about Gaza and Hamas, but the big daddy has always been Iran, right? The funding has always been Iran.
Correct.
You're talking Hezbollah, you're talking Houthis, you're talking about Hamas, you name it. You're talking assassination attempts on the president. You're talking about attacks on U.S. military bases, attacks on Israel, literally straight shooting of rockets to Israel. I mean, it's always been the conversation with Iran, right?
That's right.
And they're the source of this. And it would be interesting to see what the Middle East would look like without this, you know? And I think October 7th really happened. That's what the rumbling is, and what people in the intelligence world understand, and people that are familiar with the Middle East, is that, you know, you had the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords were a huge development. Like, Trump pulled this thing off, and people hate him so much that they just kind of brush it under the rug. And I remember I wasn't the biggest Trump fan at the beginning either, and when I first saw that, I was like, wow, you got who to sign peace agreements with Israel? Like Bahrain and UAE, and that was unheard of. Like, people... The history of the conflict has been, you know, the Arabs and the Muslims just, they hate the Jews, and that's just what it is.
Right.
And when you start to see these Arabic Muslim countries signing peace accords with Israel, it's a big deal. That was the biggest deal I'd seen in so long, and it just didn't get talked about, right?
Well, it did from a political perspective because, you know, the anti-Trump people were anti the Abraham Accords as well.
But the anti-everything Trump.
Right, and I think it's unfortunate because the Abraham Accords did exactly what you said, which was to bridge gaps in the Middle East between Islam and Judaism, between Israel and her neighbors, you know, Arab countries that would never previously think about normalizing relations with Israel solely for the purpose of the fact that if they do that, and if they join the Abraham Accords, then they legitimize the state of Israel.
Yeah, and
those countries did that, and Trump made that happen.
Right, and it's not just the history. That's what people don't understand. You understand the history, like it's like almost like a renaissance in the Middle East and the Arab world, where like this old history has always been the Jews can't be in Muslim lands. Like, we have to, the caliphate. But a lot of these Muslim countries are now moving forward, right? They're becoming more prosperous. They're not interested in this old mentality of the Jews and the Christians and we need to take over the world. No, like when people say all Muslims want to do that, that's not true. There is a big, big part of the Muslim community. Maybe they're not as vocal. I don't know how big, but a lot of these countries, at least, the governments want to move forward. They want to do business. They want to have prosperity. They want the same thing for their kids and families, that they're moving forward. You have Bahrain, you have UAE, and you had Egypt come to the table. Now, the Egypt citizens, where you have a lot of like radicalized Muslims within, but I'm saying the government, Al-Sisi came out and gave a speech to the clerics that was like monumental, saying, listen, stop teaching our kids to hate Jews, to hate Christians. Enough.
Yep.
It doesn't work. We want to move forward. It just brought us pain and wars and suffering. So what was happening is Saudi Arabia was coming to the table. And the other big player in the Middle East is Saudi Arabia. They're arguably behind the scenes, one of the biggest. Qataris are the richest. Saudi Arabia's right there.
Right.
So they come to the table and you have a monumental shift in the story, right? Yes. So I think that Iran would have been very isolated had that happened.
Yes.
And and all of a sudden, boom, October 7th happens. Let's shake it all up. Let's
Well,
get everybody hating the Jews and
and that's what
Israel
happened.
again. Let's
Yes,
rekindle.
you're right. That was
go
the
ahead.
impetus for October 7th. So
Right.
the idea was that that Saudi Arabia it was the linchpin, because don't forget you have the underlying issue between the Sunni and the Shia. So these countries that you're referencing, these are all primarily Sunni Islam countries.
The Saudi Arabia is, right.
Saudi Arabia
Iran
for
is
sure,
Shia,
even
right.
though the Muslim Brotherhood originated from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, but they
and-
kicked them
and
all out. They hate them.
They are.
Wahhabis.
They are right. Well, that's where it comes from, right?
Right.
The Wahhabi sect.
Right.
But you're right. So they've become more moderate and progressive, and have sort of joined, modern
Yeah,
civilization.
boxing and soccer, we see them all over.
And security and
Right.
prosperity, and that's
Right.
what all of those countries wanted. And so what you saw was exactly a realignment where Shia Islam, right, which is completely Islamist and seeks nothing but a worldwide caliphate,
Right.
was being marginalized.
Right.
And in order to shake that up and prevent that normalization from happening, the recognition of the evil Zionist state, October 7th was necessary.
Right.
And that's why it was funded by and directed by and orchestrated by the mullahs in Iran.
Right.
They fund Hezbollah, they fund the Houthis, they fund Hamas, they fund the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and they train those different proxies, if you will, to invade and destroy Israel.
Right.
All comes from Iran. They're the head of the snake.
Right, and that's why when you see the gay community and you see all the liberals that are fighting, you want progressiveness. This is they're trying to become more progressive, and I don't know a different definition of it, but obviously they want to move forward. They want to have government, and you're fighting it. You're supporting the other side, you idiots. You're literally useful idiots is the term you hear,
Right.
because you're literally saying, hey, they've convinced you that the Jews are the oppressors and that the most liberal democracy, you hear it over and over again, but you got to let it sink in, right? Now we have these Arab countries that notoriously the women rights are not equal, the gay rights are very not equal, right?
Of course not.
They're trying to move forward. They're trying to, and you're preventing. You're supporting the other side and doing it, and it's absurd. And anyone that understands the history knows people don't know what a Shia is, and people don't know caliphate. People don't know these terms. They think it's some kind of like we're like propagandists, Zionists that are making this shit up. This is history.
Right.
It's right in front of you. You know.
Right.
So like. So now obviously that starts to happen. Saudi Arabia starts coming. They have to shut that down, right? So now what Israel has done, Israel's been fighting off every form of proxy coming at them from every angle, which is like it's historic. What countries had to do this over and over again? What country? Yeah, U.S. It helps with equipment, and all these countries who come in. When Iran was firing missiles, they were helping intercept. Great, but they understand that this is the beacon of progress, right? In the Middle East, you have to protect. This goes, the world starts to go.
Well, see, and that's what's so frustrating about the geopolitics of it all. So,
Right.
for example, even Jordan, which, as you know, is 75% Palestinian,
right.
was helping Israel to knock down Iranian missiles
Right.
over the last couple of weeks. Why? Because, like you said, all of those surrounding countries, they need Israel there.
Right.
Because otherwise, the Shia Muslims from Iran, have you looked at a map? Have you seen the size of Iran?
Yeah, it's monumental.
They will simply just come west and conquer,
They
all
recreate
of
the
that
Ottoman Empire.
territory, including the Sunni Muslims.
Right.
Okay, so Israel is necessary. The United States presence is necessary in the region for stability. And all of those surrounding countries, they can get on TV and say, we hate Iran and Turkey, same thing all we want, or hate Israel all we want, including Turkey. But in their internal dialogue, they absolutely know that Israel is very important to the stability of the region.
It's all about ideology over there. You got to just listen to rhetoric.
Yep.
They will speak the rhetoric. If you listen to the Saudis talk, listen to the Bahrainians talk, listen to UAEs, their ideology is becoming, they're done with it.
They're done with extremism. They're done with
They don't want to hear it
Islamism.
anymore, right?
They
And
don't
they
want-
can't understand how we allow it here. But they really don't get our democracy. It lends itself to it. It should be allowed to some extent. But this is dangerous shit.
It's funny that you mentioned that. They do. People in those countries, leaders in those countries do. They ban the Muslim Brotherhood. It's
Right.
illegal in those countries. Islamism, right? Extremism is illegal in those countries.
Right.
And yet they look at us and they're like, what are they doing over
What are
there
you
in the
doing?
West?
Right.
Why are they importing Islamism at will? Don't they know that the plan of the Islamists is to destroy their country and then create their caliphate?
Right.
And they're letting it happen, and they're watching us do it.
And you can't call it Islamophobia. They're all Muslims. These are Muslims telling you this. All right? It's like saying, you know, like a cult in the Christianity. Christians will call out the cult and be like, they're crazy.
Yeah.
They want to kill everybody, right? It's that simple. You got to be able to do that.
Right. I mean, it's unfairly, but how many Jews walk by Hasidim and go, what's with them?
Especially there's some fucking crazy
Come on.
ones,
So,
right?
of course, you
Yeah,
have to be
like-
objective, but, you know,
But then you can't just say, you know, you're Islamophobic. That's just
nah,
stupid.
I don't believe in Islamophobia. There's
Well,
no
I
such
mean,
thing.
that was a term.
Phobia is
coined-
an
unreasonable fear. Right.
And I think that we are smart to fear Islam
Right.
because their
This form of
values,
Islamism.
a form of Islam, are
Right.
inconsistent with Western values,
Well-
as far as I'm concerned. And I stick to that opinion.
So we shift to Iran. Iran, they're making nuclear weapons. And you know what? First of all, let's just break it down. Iran has been making nuclear weapon, talking about it every chance they can, threatening with it every chance they can. We're going to kill the United States. We're going to kill everybody in Israel. We're going to wipe out people on the map. This is just listen to their rhetoric, right? They won't let inspectors in. They play game with the inspectors. They do these dumb deals. They did a deal with Obama where, like, yeah, we're going to stop enriching, give us money, but then that terminates, and we can go right back to what we want unless we cut a new deal. So we're just getting money from you and delaying, but really doing it underneath. And all of this is happening the entire time. All of this is going on, and the reality is that they're trying to create a nuclear weapon. They're trying to harm us, right? And it also exposes these. So we get to a point where the United States, what we did, and look, the United States, its interests with Israel are aligned on this. That's what people don't understand. There's things where Israel and the United States interests aren't aligned, and we'll talk about that in another segment. But in this, it's 100% aligned, right? We're in this together, okay? And they're trying to literally wipe things off the map. So the way we played it, obviously, was Israel's going to do the brunt work here. We're not going to send American troops in. Fine. Israel said, fine. We need your bunker busters, right? Because these guys, they've put it down. They know what weaponry we have. We have all the intel.
Well, that's been Israel's
Right.
That's been Israel's position for the last 4.5 years. Unfortunately, the Biden administration did everything it could to get in the way. Really, what Israel needed was for Trump and the United States to get out of the way, and Trump absolutely said, of course, knock yourselves out, we'll get out of the way. And then Israel said, we need your bunker buster bombs, and that's when the United States says, we know you do.
And it's complex because, listen, you know, the Iran, for people that don't know, sells their oil to Russia.
And China.
To China.
Yep.
So, you know, people don't like Trump and say, oh, he shouldn't be talking to the Chinese leader or he shouldn't be talking to Putin. But listen, the fact that the guy could pick up the phone and say, hey, we're doing this. We're not going to interrupt your economic interests. No, obviously a regime change would be nice for the Middle East, but that's a different ballgame now. You're cutting into contracts. You're tortious interference with contracts, right?
Yep.
And you're playing games with big superpowers, and you got to be careful of doing
And
that.
I don't advocate that either, regime change. That has to
And
come from
that
the-
can
that
it
has
cuts
to
from
come the
inside in. We
Persian
can't
people.
do that,
I
but
agree with
it
that.
doesn't work out when we do
Correct.
that. When we come in there and do that, you don't know what. I mean, I saw like the statistics are the IRGC, which is the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. They literally are big numbers. Like the fact if the Ayatollah gets killed, the bigger chances that they just bring someone else and they take over, and it becomes even worse. So it's hard to make the call. But what it did expose, you know, when you're attacking, when you can say, oh, you're hurting the Palestinians and the Gazans and the civilians, and you can play the game where you pretend it's just Israel attacking civilians and there's no reason to be bombing these places, and you can play that game and say Israel's an oppressor and these are weak.
Yep.
What now with Iran?
Right.
And these people now, you think, I'm like, yeah, how are they going to back Iran? Like, how do you sit here and justify this regime that murders people in the streets, that like kills gays, that kills women, that have disfigured women with acid and just
For exposing their hair.
and remember they had the uprising over there. They shot the girl in the head, and dude, I mean, but they're doing it.
Well,
these
that-
anti-Semites
again,
are doing it.
Yes, it comes down to the same thing.
Right.
And same two things: ignorance and anti-Semitism. Because again, there's no other choice. It's either your attitude is it's because you hate Jews or because you're stupid and you don't know anything. And I'm hoping, I guess I do sound condescending, but this is what I find daily. So if you're in support of the Iranian regime, I'm not talking about Persian people, Iranian people, citizens.
Right.
But if you're
We're talking
if you're
regime,
supportive
obviously.
of the Iranian government because you think that the Zionists and the Americans are somehow yet again oppressing brown people, then you're just ignorant. You don't know anything. You don't know that the majority of the people that the Persian people that were born before 1979, before the Islamic Revolution, all those people would give anything to have their Persia back, right? Their Iran back, not an Islamist caliphate, that is run by Sharia law. Right. So you're right. The people in Iran are way more oppressed by their own regime than the Americans or the Zionists could ever do.
Right.
And so if you don't know that, and if you're not on the side of the United States and Israel in an attempt to prevent that caliphate from doing what they keep promising they're going to do, which is to destroy first the little Satan, which is Israel, and then the great Satan, which is the United States, then you're either an anti-Semite or you're ignorant.
What's upset, my wife was telling me this about the other day. We're talking patriotism. We'll get into that a little bit more. United States, the youth in our country have been indoctrinated to just everything U.S. is bad. We're colonizers.
Yes.
We're bad people.
We're taught to hate ourselves. Everything that we've built has been built on the backs of minorities, that it's all exploitation, that everything that we've accomplished thus far in righting the world's wrongs, right? In becoming the beacon of freedom and progressivism throughout the entire world. None of that matters because 250 years ago we had slaves.
Well, everything is imperfect. We're talking with the United States, it's one of the newest governments and countries on the planet.
Right.
So it's an upgrading one through law, through case law. Like if you understand our system, people are trying to model after us now. Like it's not going to be perfect. The history's not going to be perfect, but it's the best you're going to do.
Within our founding documents, we strive to be a more perfect nation, right?
Right.
A more perfect union. We strive for that. So that's the goal. The goal is to continue to strive to be a more perfect nation.
Yeah, I love when I have British scholars, the Oxford people lecturing to me. Your country are the original colonizers. Not the original, but they're big. Everyone has this history. And the problem is when you're taught that everything U.S. is bad, that's the lens you look at things. Like you're willing now to forgive or just to think, well, we must be doing something wrong to Iran. And we're not attacking civilians now in Iran. They're attacking literally missiles into people's houses, the IRGC
Isn't that the glaring difference?
Right.
Okay, there was no story about, Iranian civilian casualties.
Right.
Why? Because the IRGC doesn't hide its nuclear program, its facilities in residential neighborhoods.
Right.
It doesn't hide its nuclear material under hospitals or schools or mosques or children's bedrooms. So there you said what it exposed? It exposed the righteousness of the behavior of the United States and of Israel.
Right.
And they went and they attacked the military infrastructure, okay, including, military leaders. But nowhere, even from the propagandists, did you hear that Israel and the United States were attacking civilians in Iran. So again, that's the truth of it.
And the only place civilians were getting attacked were Israeli civilians. They were literally, I had family, we had friends, literally just letting loose on civilian population.
Yes.
With missiles and dropping them and overshooting, and the Iron Dome couldn't get all of them. A lot of people died. Nobody talked about it.
28 people were killed in that cell.
Barely any coverage. And Israel was trying to cover that up. Not cover it up, meaning they didn't want to televise where this was happening, so we didn't give them more targets.
That's right.
Look at the difference. The other government is propping up civilian deaths, sending videos out, putting them in bad positions because they use it as propaganda. This government doesn't want it to happen, doesn't want you to even see it happening because they don't want you to try it again, and they don't want you to encourage you to think you're doing something good, because that's not the aim of the IDF. And it's incredible. I like this schmuck charlatan, Pierce Morgan. Have you been watching this guy recently? I can't.
No.
The guy.
I don't give energy to it because
he's a weasel.
It saps mine.
He's a weasel. He literally, how come You see what they've done in Hezbollah, in Lebanon, and in Iran. How come they couldn't use that precision with Gaza? How do you make that? How can you even bring that up? Like, clearly in Gaza, they're embedded, right?
Yes.
In houses, under kids' beds. Why aren't you talking about that?
Right.
Why aren't you talking about
Right.
that? And so Alika Bond went on, and she was debating that schmuck, the comedian idiot. I'm not even going to name his name. And she was saying, like, look, if you want to criticize Israel and you criticize the civilian deaths, that's fine. But why are you not talking about Hamas? Why are you not bringing up why they're there, right?
Why is there an entire tunnel infrastructure underneath Gaza?
We're not talking about that, right?
Right.
That just gets skipped over, right?
This is not because of Israel. This is because of Hamas.
Right.
It's that simple.
Right.
We can say it until we're blue in the face. The Israelis left Gaza in 2005. They left the territory completely, so much so that they dug up their dead and took them with them.
Right.
And they left this beautiful enclave, right, on the water, on the Mediterranean,
Right.
to Hamas. To
Right.
the Palestinians,
Palestinians.
to the Gazans,
Right.
and they elected Hamas as their government, knowing they were a terrorist organization. And then from 2005 to 2023, Hamas spent all that time and all the money, billions and billions. They talk about the Israel lobby. Give me a break. Way more billions of dollars gets pumped into Gaza than Israel or any of the other recipients combined. And they used that money to build a terror infrastructure.
Right.
Okay? I mean, it's as simple as in Israel, every home, and you know this, is required to have a safe room, right? A bomb shelter.
Right.
And there are bomb
Every
shelters
building, every
on
home.
almost every, corner on every street.
Right.
Why? Because Israel is used to getting incoming attacks from her neighbors. So in order to protect her citizens, they build bomb shelters and safe rooms in every home.
Right.
You won't find a bomb shelter or a safe room in a home in Gaza. Why? Because it's important for Hamas to make sure that Gazans get killed.
Right.
Because it plays well on television, and then they get their sympathy, and then their money keeps coming.
And every time a Pierce Morgan or a Candace Schmuck Owens or any of these people pump it, you're motivating them to do more. You're saying to them, hey, it's working. Look, they're blasting Israel. And look, and
I guess there's an idea out there now, I guess a phenomenon that's real, that it pays. You get your clicks, you get your views, money's pouring in. Being an anti-Semite is profitable now.
it's much more profitable than you put pro-Israel guys on. You're not going to get girls.
Right.
You're not going to get the ratings. Piers Morgan figured that out.
I don't know. I saw your ratings are pretty good.
But yeah, but I'm saying, like, these guys, they're comparing. They'd rather have people shouting at each other. Or they'd rather have these idiots that are talking nonsense. These people have to know a lot of this is nonsense. You
I
have
think
to
Piers
kind of know.
Morgan knows. I don't think he's an idiot.
I think he's a charlatan.
Right. I haven't been watching because, like I said, it just pisses me off. But I also know that if I'm sitting there and I'm a Piers Morgan and my producer and I are having a conversation and we're going, Candace Owens, hell yeah, let's get her on, because people are going to tune in.
Right.
And she's going to spew her absolutely vile, insane anti-Semitism, and it's going to play well to her audience.
Well, his thing was the new thing he's jumping on is, well, how come you're not letting journalists into Gaza? How come you're not letting journalists into Gaza? And look, but they let journalism in other war zones. This is a unique war zone, okay? Letting a journalist sit in a hotel in Baghdad when the fighting is elsewhere, or or be embedded at a base, and when these guys they don't go out on missions. Like, these people, the soldiers are walking. The last thing they need is CNN in between their fucking legs, trying to set them up for something too. Like, how it's going to cause hesitation. They can't. This is the most unique war zone in history, right?
Well, I mean, I think that the journalists, the media has lost their privilege because they've relinquished their objectivity. So why would we let propagandists come into our backyard?
Look at that. Every Hamas agent calls himself a journalist now. They put that stupid that vest on, and they're journalists. And you see them in other photos with firearms, part of the Hamas, and they're all propaganda. Oh, journalist dies. Okay, yeah. What was he doing?
Right.
What was he doing?
Right.
He was just firing on IDF. Okay, that's a journalist. That was one of the guys that was raping people on October 7th.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a journalist.
Who threw on
a
blue helmet?
He's a
said
doctor,
journalism.
right? Yeah. What, he took the guy's pulse.
The doctor.
Yeah,
The doctors with the AR-15.
Give me a fucking break.
The
And then
AK-47.
But Iran and the criticism. Let's talk about the criticism from the media. like the hate for Trump, and look, I get it. The guy can be polarizing. There's a lot about his personality that's not likable, right? I get it. But there used to be this unity and patriotism in this country. Like, okay, we went into Iraq. That was a lie, I guess, right? But at the time, I'm not going to defend that war, right?
Yeah,
that was a
can't go
shit
back-
show,
yeah, can't go
right?
back to
I don't
that.
know much about it. But I will say this is not that. This is not that. We've been struggling, and every presidency's been trying to get these people to stop with their nuclear weapons, right? This is not that.
Well, not every president.
Okay, exactly. We'll get to that. But they didn't invade the country, right? They didn't go in there and send troops on the ground. He did it in 12 days, okay? So
Well, these-
where
right,
could the
precision
criticism be?
military
What are we
strikes.
stealing, oil? What is the economic interest in this?
Again, it's the idea.
But
if
what
you
are
a-
you
well,
arguing
well,
if you're
that's what I mean.
criticizing it, right?
Well, that's what I mean. If you ask them to support their position with facts, they're not going to have any idea what to say.
Right.
Other than it's again the imperialist Americans imposing their will on minority brown people in the Middle East.
Right.
That's it. What else could there be?
But they're not even embarrassed to make this. And like the immediate criticism, I think CNN put out a report saying, well, we don't know, it wasn't successful. They didn't destroy all the things. Like, and then they went and did a whole press conference showing how bad it, like, what is the media, what are you doing other than trying to sabotage the sitting government, right? Or trying to
Well-
make things, you make it us look as a country worse.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
forget the Democrat-Republican thing for a minute. Can we just forget it for a minute? At what point are we Americans anymore?
because under the surface there's a whole politic involved. Okay, so I hate to say it, but everything goes back to Obama, because Obama tried to realign the Middle East. Obama was.
Whom I voted for twice, by
Me
the way.
too. Obama was attempting to marginalize Israel and buttress the Iranians for two reasons. One, because I believe he's anti-Semitic and wanted to marginalize the Jews. But two, because there was this idea that he wanted the Americans to no longer, be relied upon as a foothold in the Middle East. In other words, no more wars, no more U.S. involvement. If we can realign the Middle East and sort of weaken Israel and strengthen Iran and its axis, which includes Iraq, which includes Syria, and then obviously other protectorates like Jordan, okay? And if those would become stronger, then they would be a bulwark against the Chinese and the Russians from their influence in the region, okay? So in other words, if we take care of Iran, Iran won't need the Russians to take care of Iran.
Right.
That was Obama's plan. Okay, and that was the reason why the Obama administration was staunchly against the Abraham Accords, because that was going to completely destroy Obama's vision. So you have to understand the politics of it. So when you have an Obama administration times two, and then the Biden administration, which is simply the Obama team third term, that has an agenda, right, which is pro-Iran. Not we love Iran, and there is something to that. But the idea to strengthen Iran in order to and appease Iran in order to bring Iran into the fold, so that Iran would then be the bulwark against China and Russia, and that was his plan. So when you take those 12 years, right, 12 years of an administration that has a particular agenda, and you and I both know that the media and the Democratic machine is all one, okay, so then you take a State Department, which is another microcosm of all this, that has always been anti-Semitic, right? The American State Department, people don't realize this. The American State Department has largely, historically, been against the Jewish cause, against Zionism, the whole thing. So when you take a media, right, and you take a State Department, and then you take an administration that is all one with a particular pro-Iran agenda, imagine the fallout, okay, in the media and in the Democratic Party when Donald Trump steps in and,
Shakes it all up.
basically closes the door on all of that. And that's why, you see so much criticism of the United States and of Israel when it comes to attacking Iran. And don't forget that during the Biden administration and the Obama administration before that, they filled their State Department and their embassies and their staffs with Iranians, right? People from Iran, people that were that they were giving Iranian or American intelligence to Iranians, who were then sending it to the mullahs in Iran, the IRGC, information about when Israel was going to strike, things like that. So, you have this whole underlying political climate that is very pro-Iran.
Yeah,
So,
like,
people are unaware of this.
Right. That's, I think, when the Democratic took a hard left, I noticed it because I voted for Obama, and, I liked the way he talked. I liked a lot of things he did. But when he did the Iran deal, I could not wrap my head around that. I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing? Because it couldn't be any clearer to me. Let's release all this money to you. It couldn't be any clearer to me.
Let's take the Houthis off the designated terrorist list.
Right.
Let's reduce sanctions on Iran to zero. This is the things that the Obama administration was doing in order to appease Iran. And you said it at the beginning of this broadcast that that the Iran deal, the JCPOA, which is the Iran deal, had sunset clauses, and those sunset clauses were in 2025. So this year, all of the provisions that were supposed to delay Iran's nuclear program expired this year. So at the expiration of those provisions, Iran then would be sitting with a legal, legitimate, United States sanctioned nuclear weapon.
Right.
That's what that plan was allowing to occur. And that's why it was so necessary for the United States to provide those bunker busting bombs.
Right. And the first thing Trump does when he wins is reverses the deal. That's first time.
Yep.
First thing Biden does when he's back in office is reinstate it.
Yep.
And it led me to believe there's only two alternatives here.
Right.
One, they're that stupid, which I don't believe. Or two, there's something nefarious going on. And that sounds like a conspiracy crazy thing, but what else could it be? Did they really believe that we're going to release the money and just go on their word when they're showing you? It's not like they're hiding the fact that these are their proxies. They're showing you what they're doing. They're not saying, well, we have nothing to do with Hamas. And matter of fact, negotiations go through Iran a lot of times. Like, they clearly are telling you we're backing all these people, I
mean, I think that there, like I said, there's underlying anti-Semitism in the State Department, and I believe that Obama is anti-Semitic and hates Israel, hates Netanyahu, for sure.
Well, that's for sure.
But I also want to give them credit because I don't think that is the motivation. Okay, it may drive them subconsciously, but I don't believe that's the motivation. I believe that they believe that you can reason with the Iranians, that they're sober people, that aren't suicidal. I believe they believe that, and the reason I say that is because people like Anthony Blinken, all right, who, as much as he makes my skin crawl, he was one of the moderates in terms of trying to slow Iran's acquisition of the nuclear weapon. And he admitted publicly in an interview with Foreign Affairs that the Iran deal was, less than ideal, and that there needed to be a round two, because they knew that there were these sunset clauses that were going to provide Iran with a direct path to a nuclear weapon as of 2025. So, his rhetoric was, yeah, we need a round two. Okay, so in other words, we needed to get here, and then let's accomplish this, knowing that we're not at the end.
We're not even near
and
the
then
end.
We'll have a round two, knowing there would never be a round two.
Right.
Okay, so to me, it's more about that. It's more about being naive, and the Obama administration and the Biden administration thinking that you could deal with the mullahs in Iran.
But even if you, like, you don't believe anything we just said, and you think there's a way to reason and all that kind of stuff, when the government of Israel and the government of the United States right now are telling you, we are doing this because we believe they are at the brink of having a nuclear weapon, the actions they take, how could you interpret them any other way other than just trying to subdue this threat, right? They don't invade the country. They literally missile generals in their homes, right?
Yep.
They bunker buster at
Yep.
great expense,
Yep.
at great risk, and amazing. The
Pilots
pilots
and
are unbelievable, right?
36 hours in the air.
Using
refueling.
billion-dollar planes. They're doing this for shits and giggles.
Yep.
They're doing this for what? And the rumblings now are that Saudi Arabia is about to get into this Abraham Accord, and the rumblings now is that the whole Gaza thing is going to be shut down. If this happens, if the Nobel Peace Prize was ever warranted, it's now. You think they're going to give Donald Trump the goddamn Nobel Peace Prize? Never.
I think that it's going to happen. I don't know about that, but I do believe.
I'd be surprised if they did, put it that way.
I believe this is going to happen. I believe
It would be great.
I believe that Saudi Arabia is going to get involved, and then the dominoes are going to fall.
Well,
And then I believe that Gaza will be rebuilt by that particular portion of the international community.
right.
But I don't think you're ever going to see
hotbed.
any ability to attack Israel ever.
They're not
again
gonna
from the
let that
Gaza
happen.
Strip. No.
And so the rumblings I hear of a potential peace deal
Yeah.
are that, from the four Arabic countries would take control of Gaza and rebuild it.
Yep.
There would be immediate release of the hostages, immediate ceasefire. There would be a recognition of a Palestinian state within the West Bank.
Okay. I haven't heard that.
That's what they're saying. That's what the rumblings are. Now, I don't know how you do that with the West Bank. I guess you leave it to the Palestinian Authority. Realistically, if you understand how this works in geography, like the West Bank, literally, what does it take? A couple of minutes to get a bomb over to us? Like you could throw a bomb over to us. It would need to be some kind. They're still going to say, oh, there's an occupation, because there's going to be some kind of security apparatus there, or some probably provisions restricting some kind of air thing or whatever. Probably not going to allow them, I'm sure, a military, right? Like, I don't know how this plays out.
Yeah.
But if it does play out, it would be incredible, and also, I don't know how this can play out with the regime is still an issue in Iran. You still have an issue. Are they just going to say uncle now?
Yeah, because I think,
a lot of their
honestly,
capacity.
I do, because I think that the reality of their situation is far different from what they are projecting. I think
That's for sure.
I think they're limbless now.
That's for sure.
100%.
Dude, they're refueling in their airspace. You know how insulting that is to a military?
Right.
You complete air superiority.
Right. They have no ability to attack
But
it.
they're still running their mouths. They're like that kid on the playground. You keep beating him up. He keeps running away. He keeps talking shit the next day.
But you understand Muslim pride,
I get it.
right? So
That's what this whole
they're
bullshit
never going to
built
admit
on.
defeat. I mean, they never admit defeat. That's actually part of their pathology.
I mean, the rhetoric, you listen to the rhetoric, oh, the U.S. has begged for a ceasefire. I'm like, I don't get what you're saying. Like, we begged for what?
That's to save face.
I mean, and you allow them to,
Look,
do
remember,
it if it creates a peaceful
I don't mean to
situation.
divert, but I'm going to divert. Remember in 1948, that was the reason why the war actually happened, because the leaders of all of the what became Arab countries at the time,
Right.
were telling their people, we're going to destroy the Zionist state. They knew they couldn't do it, and they had no way to do it, and they actually all got together and said, holy shit, we shouldn't do this. But they had no choice at that point, because they had already pumped their people full of, piss and vinegar. So imagine, the Muslim streets are expecting, this gigantic victory in a very swift time over the Zionists because of Muslim pride. So instead of being able to say to their people, look, let's be reasonable, this isn't such a great idea, maybe we can coexist, they already went too far. All right, so it's the same idea.
Right. And it's just mind-boggling to see, like, the youth holding up Iranian flags in our country. And we're going to talk about it in the next segment. I'm going to talk about some of the patriotism that's lost in our country. And it's sad. I remember after 9/11, and I remember 9/11. You remember 9/11 like
Sure
it was
do.
yesterday.
I remember
right?
where I
was in my 20s. You were in your late
Yeah.
20s, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, it was one of the most shocking things you could watch live, right? And the thing is the next day, the patriotism that you felt in this country, I've not felt that ever again.
Yep.
Right? Like,
Yep.
there were U.S. flags everywhere. There was no talk, no division. There was no parties. People were like shocked, pissed, and unified, right? I don't know that we
Except for the Palestinians, by the way, which
yeah, but they're not.
you saw the video of them cheering
I'm
and
talking
giving
about
out candy
US
during.
citizens,
I know.
right? The U.S. Americans.
Yep.
I don't know that we'll ever see that again. I hope we come to a point where, like, what bothered me at one point, my sister-in-law, who I love dearly, but she hates Trump, you know, and a lot of my family hate him, you know, and
Understandable.
it was the 4th of July, right, and I was wearing, like, American flag shoes or some shit, like some sneakers.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, I like your MAGA sneakers.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like,
Wow. I know.
that's
Sad.
MAGA. Like, that means Trump. If I wear anything American now, it's bad. If
Right.
you see an American sticker on a car,
Right.
oh, this guy must be a racist. Like,
Right.
what the hell
I
happened?
don't know. You know, you
What
talk
the
about
hell
9/11.
happened?
I go back to elementary school, man, where I grew up. And again, you know, I lived in a diverse community. We had all kinds, blacks, Hispanics, Jews, white, didn't matter. You know, I was lucky in that neighborhood. Everybody got along, and it really didn't touch us. But I remember, man, I remember being in 5th grade, and you know, the firemen coming, you know, and showing us how to fold an American flag, and teaching us how
Right.
it doesn't touch the ground, and you know how you hang it and how you take care of it, and you know, you just felt so full of pride. You know, this is what was taught. Patriotism was taught. How can you maintain? Well, I think this is the plan. Look, you said, can we get back there? I don't think we'd get back there. I think this is the plan. You know, the plan is to destroy Western civilization from within, and the way that you do that is you sow discontent. You make people hate their country, and this is what's happening. But I'm telling you, man, I remember, like I said, being a kid, you loved being American. You thought it was the greatest thing in the world, and they pumped us full of pride. You know,
Right.
that's what was taught. Positivity was taught. Now
Right.
it's all negative.
Right. And listen, it's a good spot for us to end. I don't want to end on a bad note, but I hope, obviously, I'm optimistic, and I hope somehow we can turn this around. We're going to talk a little bit more about patriotism in the next segment. But thank you for coming on again, Lloyd.
Welcome.
I think we talked about some major things. We try to paint a picture of what's happening here, give a tone of what really is going on in the Middle East. As always, I look forward to having you on many more times, my friend. Thank you for coming. And listen, just survive these attacks online. I'm with you here, bud. We're going to
man,
be fighting these guys together, you know, or
You know,
girls,
people
or whatever the hell they
people
are.
know by now I have a pretty thick skin. when
Oh,
it
for
comes to this
sure.
kind of
You're a
thing.
warrior. This is what we don't do what we do without having thick skin. So,
That's it.
all right. Well, thank you for coming
Welcome.
on, and
My pleasure.
thank you all for listening to Two Taps and Friends. We love you all. We're going to keep bringing you, you know, episodes and have fun. And what we ask from you is to like and subscribe to the channel. If you like and subscribe to the channel, it gives us a boost. It gives us viewers. It, you know, motivates everybody. You know, it creates the buzz. It really helps us a lot. So please like, subscribe to the channel. We're everywhere. We're on YouTube Music. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We're everywhere. Or X.
And be,
I mean,
you know,
and X.
engage with us. You
And
know,
being,
like
right. Come with comment.
yeah,
Comment. We'll
just
be
be
glad to
respectful.
respond.
We can argue respectfully.
Or don't be respectful. We could argue disrespectfully.
Hell yeah,
but,
we can do that too.
But
But
thank
live
you all
by
for
the feather and die by the sword.
exactly. But thank you all for listening. We love you all. We'll see you next time. Goodbye. Cut.